I know that dedicated GPUs do AV1. I don't know about when their CPU started doing it. Or they're
If you're
there.
doing it,
Yeah.
if you're doing it server side, Twitch uses these, but they're the GPUs. They're not GPUs. They're
Mhm.
accelerators. They're asyncs,
Mhm.
and their whole job is to do AV1 encoding, and
Mhm.
that would be an ideal solution. But it also comes at a price tag of $60,000.
Whoo!
So
Yeah.
because it's an async, so I do have AV1 listed there. I will have to turn it off
Mhm.
in the ingest. But by fixing the format, that means that the ingest servers don't have to do much video processing themselves.
Right.
So all they're virtually is doing is taking the segments in, and then serving them as HTTP and HLS. What that means is that you can deploy a bunch of, for example, if we were using Linode, you deploy a bunch of Linode VPS instances,
Mhm.
and with that 40 in, one out, 1 gigabit out, that means that relatively it's more cost effective than getting a single server,
Mhm.
and it scales better, obviously,
Mhm.
because just for context, this whole entire thing is designed so you can have multiple servers at once,
Mhm.
multiple services all running at once. As long as it's in the database, like a list of them, it will just work with the other ones.
Mhm.
But because of that, it makes it more scalable. So as we scale more, because there'll be more income, that means you can put more servers in and more ingest servers, more relays, etc., etc., etc. So, as I was saying, there is one problem though I've yet to address, and that's adaptive HLS.
Mhm.
So obviously, some people can't download a 1080p 60 FPS stream.
Right.
So I'm going to have to do that processing somewhere.
Mhm.
I'd probably do it on the ingest, but you can still kind of get away with that on Linode by using their dedicated CPU servers
Mhm.
instead of a GPU server.
Mhm.
So it does mean more overhead, yes, but realistically, for a single video chunk, you'd only need to process about, what is it, three different resolutions realistically. So
Mhm.
you'd have the 1080p, 780, 720, 480, and then 360 because no one's going to watch a 144p stream. So yeah, it's still early on, pretty much, to
Right. Right.
describe
Right.
it. I do. I have a physical Supermicro server, and that's what I've been doing most of my testing on. So I have a physical NIC in that goes to a virtual machine, and that's basically acting as a Linode instance. So it's a perfect test and stuff like that, and it's been working out fine so far.
Mhm.
Although I did have to replace my switch because during load testing, because the virtual machine has its own NIC,
Mhm.
the Windows obviously can't directly communicate to it unless it goes through the switch, right?
Mhm.
And I found that my switch, it shut itself. Legitimately, it crapped itself doing the stress test.
Mhm.
So I had to replace that out. And now, so it actually dropped out at about 100 connections a second, which is pretty bad for a gigabit switch.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I replaced it. Now I can do up to 1,000 concurrent connections at once to the API,
Mhm.
not the ingest, but the API because that's more important
Mhm.
before it starts to crap itself with. It's just because there's just some CPU intensive compute to do with verifying the connection and stuff like that through
Mhm.
keys. So, like API keys.
Right.
And I will note the API key format is separate to what VTuber's TV itself will use for their API keys, and it's done on
Mhm.
purpose because these services are not meant to be accessed by anything except the other VStream software. There's
Right.
absolutely no reason why anything else should access the APIs. So yeah, it's testing has become a real pain. As you said though, a lot of people try and scale even though they don't have the hardware yet. I'm more doing it just in case there is a sudden influx.
Right.
And it's just more to see how it behaves when there isn't influx,
Sure.
more or less.
Okay, fair enough. So you originally mentioned how the revenue split works, but just generally, can you explain how platform funding is going to work? Because you have these different models. You have membership-based models. There are ad-based models. Like, what is the plan here for how it's gonna work, basically?
So it's going to be a mix. We'll have ads like Google's ad platform, and it'll be like one in-page ad at most,
Mhm.
maybe two, but that's just from like another revenue.
So far, no injected ads. That's been a big
Yeah.
no-no.
Right.
So into the
we're not gonna,
streams.
we're not going to put ads into streams or videos.
Mhm.
That's annoying. Um,
Especially how
For-
aggressive Twitch is with it now.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
7
Well,
ads
for
before the stream
videos-
starts.
Well, for videos, you could probably have ads, just not as common,
Sure.
like not as much as
Yeah.
what YouTube's doing.
Mhm.
But for streams, the only thing that gets injected is a brief loading screen. I might have a screenshot of it somewhere.
Mhm.
And because it adds a slight delay to the stream, yes,
Mhm.
but I've noticed that the stream delay between you streaming from OBS and the viewer seeing the stream, like even over the internet,
Mhm.
it's about 8 to 10 seconds,
Mhm.
which is much better than Twitch and YouTube. There is an intentional delay in the relays because what they do is they download the chunks in advance and then serve the second latest chunk.
Mhm.
And the reason why they do that is so they can detect an error early and then switch over to something else so the stream doesn't get interrupted.
Mhm.
So there is a brief moment where the first time the stream starts getting cached on the server, on the relay, it will show a loading video chunk basically, and that's the only thing that gets injected.
Okay.
For
Yeah.
going back to the money making,
Mhm.
creators, it sounds really weird. We don't pay them if we get donations or anything.
Right.
Their whole thing is like, through streams, if someone buys a membership from them, or if they just do things like that.
Mhm.
And we take 50% from them.
Mhm.
And for the main platform, we take 40,
Mhm.
and we get just going based off the 50-50 split. We take 40, and the 10% goes like charity, just to kind of help people out. So there's two charities. There's the Veterans Charity in America, and then there's a homeless charity.
Mhm.
So it sounds really bad, but by giving us money, you're also helping people. Which is not a lot, but it's the most that we can afford.
Mhm. Mhm.
Any split from streamer donations and stuff will directly go to the bandwidth costs for running that particular stream.
Mhm.
That's the
That
biggest
will
thing.
just go directly. What's the other one? I just hadn't come on mind. I
will note this background image is temporary because copyright. We just don't have a good enough image yet. So,
there we go. Yeah.
and then there is
no one knows what that image is. It's a mystery.
Yes. And then there's a fallback image. I did get a public domain image for when the stream fails.
Mhm.
So if the stream fails and it can't switch over in time, it will basically it will generate a chunk on the spot, a segment, and it will start injecting that segment instead as a placeholder because I've found that HLS video players, they are very garbage. If you've ever went on like Twitch, for example, you know how someone ends their stream and it will just sit there trying to load it.
Uh-huh.
And it's stuff like that. And the reason, as I said, the reason why it's injected is just to stop the video player from crapping itself. But it also gives the viewer information about that their stream is going to be interrupted for just a short period of time and then it should resume.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't resume, you just assume the person would reload the page, meaning it would connect to another relay instead.
Mm-hmm.
which then the stream would be continued on from there.